Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Karen Corbin, and I work for the Translational Research Institute, which is part of Advent Health. And my official title is Investigator, which sounds really fancy, but it's another way of saying that I'm a faculty member who does research. So I think most or all of you watching are from Florida, so you probably have heard about Advent Health. We are a national healthcare system, but we are based out of Orlando. Our headquarters is in Orlando. So we take care of people, which is really important, and their health needs, but we also have a very active research program because in order to make discoveries to deal with things like what we're dealing today, such as COVID-19, we need to innovate and we need to find new solutions and we need to learn quickly. So we have a whole bunch of research going on at the hospital, and I'm specifically involved in research related to metabolism, which I think we'll talk about in just a minute. So our studies at the Translational Research Institute are all related to human metabolism. So how you burn calories, how you utilize nutrients, and those things are really important for many diseases like diabetes, obesity, fatty liver disease, and even cancer. So we study many diseases such as those that are related to metabolism. And I'm specifically an expert in nutrition and the liver. There's a disease called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So that's my area of expertise. And I study two specific things. Number one, how does nutrition or how do specific nutrients impact the health of the liver? And number two, something that you may have heard of called the gut microbiome. And that is a broad term for bacteria that live in and on your body, but in this case, particularly in your intestinal system, the lower part of it specifically. And it turns out that you may or may not know that these bacteria that live in or on us are actually our friends. They do very important things, and they actually process some of the calories that we eat and some of the nutrients. And many studies have shown that they have many impacts on our health, and specifically all the diseases that we study at the Translational Research Institute. Wow. So what is my favorite and my least favorite part of my career? That's an interesting thing to think about. I think my favorite part of science in general, any kind of science, whether it's biological or environmental or you name it, is that element of discovery. So we get to spend our time answering questions that have never been asked. So 7 months ago in January, let's say, none of us had heard of COVID-19. And now all of us have heard about COVID-19. And in science, we get to figure out how things work and how do we understand how to improve things and make them better. So that's my absolute favorite part. I never think about the same thing every day because there's always something new. So I am always learning. So if you love to learn and ask why things work a certain way and you want to understand biology or the universe or how it all works, science is definitely the career for you. I would say my least favorite, once you get past, you have to go to school for kind of a long time, but that's not my least favorite. It's just one of the challenges. The thing that I find the most frustrating is that my career is essentially about failing all the time. Why is that? Well, when you're trying to discover new things, the answers don't come easy. If we could figure things out quickly and easily, we wouldn't need science so much. So it takes a long time to figure things out. Sometimes you learn something and you start going in a particular direction, and then you figure out, actually, now that I know a little more, that wasn't the best answer. The best answer is actually this way. So it just takes a long time. And one of my big dreams is to help science become more efficient, because today we can definitely do better. We have the technology and the connectedness and the communication and ways to learn and apply what we learn much faster than sometimes we do in our current way of doing things. So that would be my least favorite, failing and slow. So you might not have figured this out by now, but I'm actually from San Juan, Puerto Rico. So I am a Latina female, and I didn't have a lot of science role models when I was a little kid on the island, but somehow I always knew I wanted to do science. I didn't really know what that meant or what that would look like, but I knew it involved a lab coat and inventing things. And so I started with this broad idea that I wanted to do science, but that's so broad. So it took me a little while to figure out how to do it and how to get to where I am today. So when it was time to go to school, I'm a local Florida girl. Besides my time in Puerto Rico, all my education has been here in Florida. So after high school, I said, okay, I'm going to do science. So back then we had these things called books, and you flip pages and you look at like a little catalog of things. So I just was going down and I thought, biology, that sounds good. Why not? It's science. So I started there, but then I got this feeling that I wanted to work more directly with people and help people. So that's what drew me to nutrition, because nutrition is a way to use science but apply it to health. So I went down that path. I studied nutrition, and when it was time after my bachelor's degree, the next thing you do in nutrition, if you want to actually practice nutrition in a clinical setting, which I did, is to become a registered dietitian. So I went down that road, and then I had a huge decision to make, one of the biggest in my life, and that is, do I go to work first as a dietitian and kind of learn more and figure myself out, or do I go straight and go get my PhD? And I got some great advice from a mentor that I had at Moffitt Cancer Center when I was an intern, because I had to intern to become a dietitian. And she advised me to work first because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do in science. I mean, I knew nutrition and health, but that's still way too broad. So I took her advice. I almost didn't, because I thought, I know what I want and I'm going to get my degree and I can totally do this. But good thing that I thought about it a little more and I said, I think she's right. So I went to work first. And that's when I figured out what I really wanted to study. Because when I was taking care of patients with diabetes and heart disease and trying to show them what to eat, I figured out a lot of times the diets I was prescribing weren't working, even if they did everything I said. And I didn't see, we're back to the failure thing. I didn't like this failure thing. So I said, boy, I think there are some gaps in our understanding of science and nutrition and how to help people at the individual level, because even though our DNA makes us 99.9% alike, that 0.1% is enough to make us extremely different. And that impacts a lot of things, but what we can and should eat is one of the most important things, because guess what? All of us have to eat every single day, from the cradle to the grave. So nutrition is one of the most important things. So that's when I decided to dedicate the rest of my life to understanding the nuances of nutrition, the things that make nutrition different for different people, and to do the kind of science that would help us make things more personalized and to help people much better than we were helping them before. So I went that direction for my PhD, and then I had to do something called the postdoc, which is after you get your doctorate degree, you do a few more years of training and learning, kind of like a medical residency. And then eventually I ended up here in Orlando doing the kind of work that I love, which is really focused on the science that's the most likely to have an impact on human health. It's hard to think about just one thing I would advise you as students to do for your career. But if I was to say probably the most important thing is to figure out what you're passionate about, because earning a paycheck is important and you need to pay your bills and all that. But if you can find that work that puts a fire in your belly that you're excited to do. Now, I'm not saying work is fun all the time. They call it work for a reason. But what I am saying is, if you really believe in what you're doing and you feel like you have a purpose for that and you're good at it, then that should be what you focus on. I would say a close second, if I could sneak a second thing in, is just the importance of mentorship and in having people that you trust and can count on to give you advice. If I didn't have that mentor who told me I probably wasn't ready to go to school and get my PhD just yet, I would have probably been fine. I would have muddled through the PhD, but I can promise you my path to getting to where I am would have probably been a little more challenging and a little bit longer, and I would have had a lot of more twists and turns than if than without her advice. So that advice was really important, and I have tons of examples of advice. So I think those two things are really, really important. And I lied, I'm going to say one third thing is critical thinking. Learning how to think and solve problems is so important, and that skill can take you to all kinds of jobs and you'll be very successful, because as you can probably see, society has a lot of problems and you can't always solve them by looking it up on the internet. You have to think creatively and critically about doing things in a different way to make the world a better place, essentially. So I'll stop there, but I could probably give you 5 more things that are important, but I think those would be my top 3.